our ups and downs, and we all have our limitations, and we all know that there are certain things you can't do. But I mean, I don't want some arsehole critic to tell me that.
So the wait is finally over, Bohemian Rhapsody is here, and in today's video I'm going to give you my spoiler-free review of the movie. Now I also plan on making a more spoiler-filled video where I go through some of my predictions I made before the movie came out, and see how many of those I got right or wrong, or how that all panned out. So we'll start off by talking about the good, the things I really liked about the film. This film looks great, and the attention to detail, particularly in the costumes and wigs, is phenomenal. There are a number of times where you'll be taken aback by just how much Rami Malek looks like Freddie. He looks particularly like him during the 80s with the moustache, but there's one particular scene when Queen are at the farm recording Bohemian Rhapsody, and Freddie is standing looking out over the fields, and I was amazed by how much Rami looked like Freddie in that scene. All of this would mean nothing if the performances by the lead actors weren't any good, but thankfully they are. The four members of the band, Rami, Willem Lee, Ben Hardy, and Joe Mazzello, are magnificent in their roles, and really make you believe that they are their respective members of Queen. The weakest of the four is probably Ben Hardy, who doesn't quite get his Roger impersonation as accurate as the other three guys, but that's nitpicking as he still delivers a strong performance. Willem Lee and Joe Mazzello deserve serious praise, as every scene they are in, they play their characters perfectly. There's one scene in particular where the band have a meeting in Freddie's house at Garden Lodge, and Joe's mannerisms and accent look exactly like John, even to the point where you can almost recognise the interviews that he must have watched as inspiration. Everyone else in the cast is also magnificent, particularly Lucy Boynton, who plays Mary Austin. The Freddie-Mary relationship is a huge part of the storyline throughout the film, and the emotional backbone of the story really rests on this relationship, and Rami and Lucy really make this important aspect work spectacularly. The live concert scenes look and sound amazing, and the build up to Live Aid is really quite exciting, and thankfully the Live Aid concert itself lives up to the hype. The film does a great job of representing Freddie's loneliness and how his behaviour creates a divide between him and his closest friends and family. There's a great scene between Freddie, John Reid and Paul Prenter in Freddie's limo, and a magnificent press conference scene that we've seen glimpses of in the trailer. The story as a whole is quite strong. The writers have done an impressive job of covering so much of Queen's career and Freddie's life in a 2-hour film, but it isn't perfect, and that brings us to the bad. While I do have some criticisms of the film, they are all very minor issues that don't really bother me too much, but are still worth pointing out. The film does move very fast, particularly during the rise of Queen in the early years. John Deacon just kind of appears out of nowhere, and the film presents the band as somewhat of an overnight sensation, which obviously wasn't the case. Why they present it like this is understandable, as they only have 2 hours to tell the story, but in a perfect world where we have more time, I think it would have been really interesting to see the early struggles of the band and how they were screwed over by their management, which obviously put serious pressure on the band while they recorded A Night at the Opera. The Jim Hutton storyline doesn't really work, and a large reason for this is that Jim and Freddie's relationship mostly took place after Live Aid, so it's difficult to represent that in this film's timeline. I feel this storyline only works if you have some prior knowledge of who Jim was in Freddie's actual life, otherwise it's probably just a very strange part of the story. As we know, there are a lot of time shifts in this film, most of which I knew about going in, and they're all pretty well justified and understandable when you see how they work in the story. Some, like the creation of We Will Rock You being moved to the 80s, don't really make sense and aren't justified in the film, but for the most part these time shifts work for the better. There's one particular thing from the Miracle era that was time shifted forward to before Live Aid, and it really works quite well, and it's really nice to see that acknowledged even though the film doesn't cover the Miracle era. Overall, I really loved the film and was completely immersed and had a big smile on my face through the entire thing. If you're expecting a telling of the Queen story that's 100% correct and true to the history books, then you'll probably be a little disappointed. But for the most part, the majority of what you see in the movie is true to what happened. It's just when it happened that changes around quite a bit. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. Remember to leave your comments down below. Did you like the movie? What did you like? What was your favourite part? What was some of the parts you thought they could have done a bit better maybe? Remember to leave those down below, and as always, we'll see you next time.